Hey guys, welcome back to Hillside Forge. Now in today's episode, we're going to be forging a small kitchen knife with a 6-inch blade and about a 4-inch handle. This is actually a custom order I had come into the shop, and I figured it'd be cool to bring you guys along for the journey. So let's get started.
Okay, so we're going to start with about an 8-inch piece of steel, and then we're going to go ahead and measure out from 3.5 inches and make a mark. Now at 3.5 inches is going to be the handle back, and from the 3.5 mark forward is going to be what we forge into the blade. Now we're going to go ahead and draw a curve from the spine of the knife to the blade of the knife. This should be opposite of where you made your handle isolation mark. This is to help with preform for forging the knife. Now with our lines drawn, we can go ahead and start grinding this out, and after it's ground out, it should look something like this. You should have an isolation point for your handle, a nice curve down to your blade, and then from the blade curving up to help forge the tip in. Now that it's nice and hot, we're going to go ahead and start driving the tip in. You're going to strike diagonally down into yourself to make a sax style strong slope down. Now this is always because you have to work backwards to work forwards. Now we're going to do this heat a couple of times, and then once we get that nice slope, we're going to put it over the horn of the anvil and start to bend it down. This is to account for the fact that when we begin to do the beveling, it'll curve back up, and nobody wants a chef knife that's curved like the crescent of the moon. They want a nice traditional style kitchen knife. As you forge it down, it'll start to get a little bit of a wonk to it. It's okay, just go ahead and flatten that right back out. That's totally normal when you're trying to put a curve into something like this. Alright, now let's start beveling. I try to work in small sections at a time, about 2 to 3 inches, and then once I get those where I want them, I'll move to a different point, and then we'll just keep going down the line. If you try and do the whole thing at once, you can do it that way. I just feel I have more control if I take it in segments. Now here you can really start to see that with that bevel coming in, it's making that tip come back up, as opposed to the curve we had it in initially. Now I'm going to hold the blade upright and do gentle taps down the blade to try and make everything nice and straight. I don't want deep hammer gouges or uneven spots. I want the whole thing to be a nice, smooth slope all the way to the tip and all the way back to the handle. Now let's brush all that forge scale off and switch around to the handle. Now we're going to go ahead and lay that isolation mark we made on the corner of the anvil and then drive that up in. That's going to be our finger pinch grip hold. So you want that to be somewhat narrow. I would say about 1 inch or so would be good. Now for this design, I want to do a backstop grip for the hand. So we're going to go ahead and put another isolation point in the back and drive that up in, so that way your pinky finger has something nice to lock into. This is the way that traditionally you would put the isolation point in, is just holding it over the corner of the anvil. But I like to use the angle grinder, but I just figured I'd show you guys how to do it with the anvil with this clip here. Now I want to do some fine tuning of that belly shape. That way it's good and comfortable in the hand. Right now it's a little bit too bulky. So I'm going to take a couple passes and swings and try and break it down to a more comfortable shape. But as this happens, you can see that the spine of the knife kind of gets a little dip into it, right where the handle and blade meet in your ricasso section. So we're going to have to go ahead and take that out. First we're going to take a couple taps to try and straighten it out. It's close, but it's not where I want it yet. So we're gonna go ahead and take a heat, use a wooden mallet, and try and beat it back into shape that way. And that's getting it close, but not right where I want it. So we're gonna have to do a couple taps on the anvil, just kind of swinging the knife down with inertia. There we go. Just gonna whack it a few more times. That's more how I want it. Now let's straighten this out, make sure it's the right thickness, and then we'll take it over to the grinder.
Okay, so here's where we are after the first round of forging. Now we're gonna go take with the grinder and really clean these up. We're gonna draw a shape on there that I can't quite forge the way I'd like, but this is close enough that we have good bones to work off of. It's got some straightening I gotta do to it yet, but I got that edge pretty thin. Still gonna do some more, but before I go ahead and finish doing the edge up and heat treat it, I'm gonna get the handle cleaned off so I can drill holes in it and get the profile of the knife where I want it. This is where we are with the profile we have drawn on. Now I can't really get in these grooves as deep as I'd like to with the 2x72, so I'm actually going to use I think it's a 1/2x6 to get in there like I want to, but we're going to use this to get close. And then we're just going to true everything up, and then, like I said, do the final beveling. The reason I don't forge my bevel all the way in when I'm doing a chef knife is because when I do grind a profile, sometimes like this will be really thin and then this will get thick because we're going to be eating in a little bit. So I like to give myself some room to work with. That way I can clean things out and make them even. So let's get grinding. Okay, so here's where we are after the rough grinding. Got a nice handle fit there. Now we're gonna go ahead and clean this off and hopefully get our pinholes drilled.
After removing the forge scale, the next step is to go ahead and center punch the marks for the drill bit. I go by eyeball, but you definitely want to make sure they're evenly spaced at about the relative same position on either side of the knife. It just kind of helps the symmetry and the overall beauty of the piece.
So I made this one just a little too high, so we're gonna go from here and this lower one.
Now our pinholes are drilled, so we can go ahead and put it back in the forge. We can finish forging out our bevels, and then we're gonna do some normalizing cycles and make sure everything's nice and tight. Now I'm moving over to my machine flat anvil just to make sure everything stays precise and laser straight. Now that it's all straightened out, Let's run some normalizing cycles. Now let's move on to heat treatment. I'm going to quench it in canola oil that I already have heated up to 120 degrees, just so it has a better viscosity to pull the heat out faster and give us a nice hardening. We're going to shake it and then put it in the straightening vise, make sure no warps happen.
After heat treat, this is what we have. Now our next step is going to be a temper. I'm not going to temper on camera, I'm going to do that at my house. So we can use our home ovens at 400 degrees and do that for 3 cycles, about an hour a piece, each time pulling it out and let it cool down to room temperature. I really hope you guys enjoyed this build, and I can't wait to see you guys for part 2. I look forward to it, guys, and you have a great night. See ya.